The stars looked different from the bridge of the Dominion's edge. Captain Vextar had seen many star systems during his long career with the Zilithian hegemony, but this one felt strange. The yellow star burned brightly in the center, surrounded by several small worlds. His science officer had called it Sol, based on the primitive radio signals they had detected. "Captain, we have contact," announced Commander Zilhan from the sensor station. Her 4 arms moved quickly across the control panels. "Unknown vessel detected at the edge of the system." Vextar stood up from his command chair. His tall, thin body moved with the grace that all Zilithians possessed. Their species had evolved on a low-gravity world, making them elegant but fragile compared to most other life forms they had encountered. "Show me," he ordered. The main screen lit up with an image of the detected ship. Vextar stared at it with growing confusion. The vessel looked crude, almost primitive. It was made of basic metal that reflected light in a dull gray manner. The ship's design was simple and boxy, with none of the flowing curves that marked advanced civilization. "Analysis?" Vextar asked. "The vessel appears to be approximately 800 meters in length," Zilhan reported. "Basic metal construction, possibly iron and steel alloys. I detect fusion reactors for power, but they seem very simple compared to our quantum generators. Weapons? Several turrets visible on the hull. They appear to be kinetic weapons, projectile launchers of some kind. Very primitive technology, Captain." Vextar nodded slowly. This matched what they had expected when they first detected the radio signals from this system. The transmissions had been simple electromagnetic waves, the kind that civilizations used in their early space age. The Zilithian hegemony had encountered dozens of such primitive species during their expansion across the galaxy. "Begin deep scan procedures," Vextar commanded. "I want to know everything about this vessel and its crew." The Dominion's Edge was one of the most advanced ships in the Zilithian fleet. Its exotic matter scanners could penetrate almost any material and analyze it down to the molecular level. The technology was based on quantum field manipulation, something that primitive species could not even detect, let alone block. "Deep scan initiated," Zilhan announced. The process took several minutes. Vextar waited patiently, thinking about how this encounter would unfold. The pattern was always the same. They would scan the primitive vessel, demand surrender, and the aliens would submit once they realized how outmatched they were. Some species tried to fight at first, but they never lasted long against Zilithian technology. "Captain, I'm getting some unusual readings," Zilhan said, her voice uncertain. "Explain." "The ship's computer systems are strange. They appear to be built from basic materials, but they're processing information at incredible speeds. The quantum calculations should be impossible with their technology level." Vextar frowned. "Scanner malfunction?" "I don't think so, sir. I'm running diagnostics now, but the equipment appears to be functioning normally." "Continue the scan. Focus on the crew areas." More time passed. Vextar could see that his science officer was becoming more troubled as the data came in. Other bridge crew members began to gather around the sensor station, looking at the readings with confusion. "Captain," Zilhan said finally, "you need to see this." The main screen changed to show internal scans of the alien vessel. Vextar saw corridors and rooms filled with bipedal creatures. They walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms, similar to Zilithians, but much more robust. Their bodies were thick and muscular, built for strength rather than grace. "These are the creatures that built this ship?" Vextar asked. "Yes, sir. But, Captain, look at these biological readings." The screen showed detailed scans of the alien bodies. Vextar stared in growing amazement. The creatures had multiple redundant organ systems. If one kidney failed, they had another. If their heart stopped, they had backup circulation systems. Their bones were incredibly dense, and their muscle tissue showed signs of being able to function even under extreme stress. "This is impossible," whispered Commander Theklon, the ship's medical officer. No species evolves this much redundancy unless... Unless what? Vextar demanded. Unless they come from a death world, Captain. A planet so hostile that only the strongest survive. The bridge fell silent. Death worlds were rare in the galaxy. Most intelligent life evolved on peaceful planets with stable climates and few natural dangers. The Zilithians themselves came from such a world, which was why they had been able to develop their advanced technology and philosophy. "Continue scanning," Vexatar ordered, though his voice was less confident than before. The deep scan revealed more disturbing details. The alien ship's medical bay contained equipment designed to treat radiation poisoning, explosive decompression, severe burns, and traumatic injuries. The weapons storage areas held not just the simple projectile weapons they had detected, but also backup systems, repair equipment, and ammunition designed for extended combat. "Captain," Zilhan said, "I'm detecting something else. The ship's hull isn't just basic metal. It's a composite material with multiple layers. The outer layer appears simple, but underneath there are materials I can't fully identify." "What do you mean?" "The scanning beam is being absorbed and redirected in ways that shouldn't be possible. It's like the hull is designed to confuse our sensors." Vextar felt a chill run through his body. In all their encounters with primitive species, nothing like this had ever happened. The aliens always used simple materials that were easy to scan and analyze. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel." "Put it through." The screen flickered and showed the interior of the alien ship's bridge. A creature sat in the center chair, smaller than the others, but clearly in command. Unlike the tall, graceful Zilithians, this alien was compact and solid-looking. Its skin was a light brown color, and hair grew from the top of its head. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Perseverance," the alien said in a calm, clear voice. "You are in Terran space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Vextar was surprised by the alien's directness. Most primitive species were afraid when they first encountered Zilithian ships. This captain showed no fear at all. "I am Captain Vextar of the Zilithian Hegemony," he replied. "Your vessel will prepare to be boarded for inspection." The alien captain tilted her head slightly. "I'm afraid I can't allow that, Captain Vextar. This is a military vessel of the Terran Federation. Any attempt to board without permission would be considered an act of war." "Act of war?" Vextar laughed. "Your primitive weapons are no match for our technology. Submit now, and your crew will not be harmed." Captain Chen's expression didn't change. "Captain, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The Perseverance is a patrol cruiser, not an exploration vessel. We are armed and ready to defend ourselves, if necessary." "Your kinetic weapons cannot penetrate our shields," Vexatar said confidently. "Our kinetic weapons?" Chen smiled slightly. "Captain, you've been scanning us for the last 15 minutes. I assume your sensors are quite advanced. Did they detect all of our weapon systems?" Vextar looked at Zilhan, who quickly checked her readings. "Sir, I'm only detecting the projectile launchers we identified earlier." Chen nodded. "That's what I thought. Captain Vextar, I strongly recommend that you withdraw from this system. This encounter is being recorded and transmitted to Terran Command. Any hostile action against a Federation vessel will result in immediate military response." "Impossible," Vextar said. "We detect no other ships in this system." "Are you certain about that?" Chen asked quietly. Something in her tone made Vextar uncomfortable. He turned to his tactical officer. "Full sensor sweep of the system. Look for any hidden vessels." The officer worked quickly, but after several minutes he shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. The system appears empty except for their ship and ours." Chen was still watching them calmly. "Captain Vextar, this is your final warning. Withdraw from Terran space immediately, or we will consider your presence a hostile act." Vextar had heard enough. No primitive species had ever spoken to the E. Zilithian hegemony with such confidence, it was time to show these aliens their place in the galaxy. Target their engines, he ordered. Minimum power. We'll disable them and then board. The Dominion's Edge turned its main plasma cannon toward the human ship. The weapon charged quickly, drawing power from the ship's quantum generators. Fire! Vextar commanded. The plasma beam lanced out across space, striking the human vessel's hull near the engine section. Vextar expected to see the ship's power fail and its engines shut down. Instead, the beam seemed to spread across the hull like water, dissipating harmlessly. The human ship continued moving normally, showing no signs of damage. "What happened?" Vextar demanded. I don't know, sir," the tactical officer stammered. Direct hit, but no effect. On the screen, Captain Chen was still watching them. "Thank you for that demonstration, Captain Vexitar. Now you understand why I recommended withdrawal." Vexitar stared at the human captain, finally beginning to realize that his assumptions about this primitive species might be completely wrong. Captain Vexitar stared at the view screen in disbelief. The plasma cannon that could melt through the hull of any known ship had done nothing to the human vessel. The beam had simply spread across the surface and vanished, like water poured on. "Hot metal. Run a full diagnostic on the primary weapon system," he ordered. "Already done, sir," replied the tactical officer. "All systems are functioning normally. The plasma beam fired at full strength." "Then how is their ship undamaged?" "Commander." Zilhan looked up from her scanner station. "Captain, I'm detecting some kind of metamaterial in their hull composition. The outer layer appears to be designed to disperse energy weapons." "Impossible," Vextar muttered. "Primitive species don't have metamaterials." On the screen, Captain Chen continued to watch them with that same calm expression. She didn't look surprised by their weapon's failure. In fact, she looked like she had been expecting it. "Captain Vextar," Chen said, "I gave you fair warning. Your attack has been logged and transmitted to Fleet Command. You now have approximately 6 minutes before additional Terran forces arrive." "You're bluffing," Vextar replied. "Our sensors show no other ships in the system." Chen tilted her head slightly. "Your sensors are quite advanced, I'm sure. But they're designed to detect the kind of technology your people use. Different civilizations develop different solutions to the same problems." Vexitar didn't like the way she said that. There was confidence in her voice that spoke of hidden knowledge. No primitive captain should sound so sure of themselves when facing a superior force. "Sir," called the communications officer, "incoming transmission from Fleet Admiral Kethvar." Vextar grimaced. The Fleet Admiral was his direct superior and didn't like being disturbed during routine operations. "Put him through." The screen split to show Admiral Kethvar's angular face. Like all Zilithians, he was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. "Captain Vextar, explain why you are engaging unknown aliens without authorization." "Sir, we encountered a primitive vessel and demanded their surrender according to standard first contact protocols. They refused, and we fired a warning shot." "Warning shot?" Admiral Kethvar's voice rose. "You fired on an unknown species during first contact? Have you lost your mind?" "Admiral, the species is clearly primitive. Basic metal construction, simple fusion power, kinetic weapons. They pose no threat to the hegemony." "Then why are you having difficulty with them?" Vextar hesitated. "There have been some unexpected developments." On the other half of the screen, Captain Chen was listening to their conversation with obvious interest. "Admiral," she said politely, "if I may interrupt?" Admiral Kethvar stared at her in surprise. Most primitive species were terrified when they saw Zilithian authority figures. This human seemed merely curious. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran." "Federation Navy," she continued. "Your subordinate fired on my ship without provocation. Under Terran military law, this constitutes an act of war." "Act of war?" Admiral Kethvar laughed. Captain Chen, your entire species has been contacted for the first time. You have no concept of the forces arrayed against you. Actually, Admiral, this isn't first contact, Chen replied calmly. We've been aware of your species for some time. This encounter was specifically arranged to test your capabilities and intentions. The bridge of the Dominion's edge fell silent. Vextar felt his blood run cold. What do you mean? Chen smiled slightly. The Terran Intelligence Service has been monitoring various alien civilizations for the past 50 years. Your expansion pattern suggested you would eventually reach our territory. We wanted to understand your military doctrine and technology before that happened. 50 years? Admiral Kethvar's voice was sharp. Impossible. Your species only achieved space flight recently. According to the radio signals you detected, yes, Chen agreed. But those signals were deliberately broadcast to give that impression. Our actual technological development has been different from what you might expect. Vextar looked at his science officer. Zilhan, is this possible? Captain, I've been analyzing their ship's construction while we've been talking. The more I study it, the more complex it becomes. What appeared to be simple metal construction is actually incredibly sophisticated. Their hull isn't just armor. It's a system designed to interact with different types of energy. Explain. The outer layer dissipates energy weapons like our plasma cannons. But there are additional layers underneath. Some appear designed to stop kinetic projectiles, others to deflect particle beams. It's like they built their ship to defend against every possible weapon type. Admiral Kethvar studied Captain Chen carefully. Even if your technology is more advanced than it appears, you are still one ship against our entire fleet. One ship? Chen's smile widened. Admiral, you've been scanning this system for over an hour. Are you absolutely certain there's only one Terran vessel here? Vextar spun around to face his tactical officer. Complete sensor sweep, maximum range and sensitivity. The officer's hands flew over his controls. Minutes passed as the ship's sensors examined every asteroid, moon, and piece of space debris in the system. Nothing, Captain, just their ship and our fleet. Are you sure? Chen asked quietly. Your scanners are designed to detect ships using technology similar to your own. Exotic matter cores, quantum field generators, plasma weapons. What if someone built ships using completely different principles? Such as, Admiral Kethvar demanded, simple fusion reactors that run cold, hulls made from ordinary metals that don't reflect active scans, weapons that don't require exotic matter or quantum fields. Chen paused. What if someone built warships using only technology that your people would consider primitive? Vextar felt a chill run down his spine. Zilhan, recalibrate the sensors. Look for cold fusion signatures, basic metal alloys, anything that might be hiding in the background radiation. Sir, that would take hours. There's so much natural background noise. Do it anyway. Chen watched them work with obvious amusement. You know, Captain Vextar, your attack actually helped us complete our analysis of your weapons. Our hull sensors recorded the complete energy signature of your plasma cannon. Frequency, power output, quantum resonance patterns, very useful data. Why would you need that information? Admiral Kethvar asked suspiciously. Because knowledge is power, Admiral. The more we understand about your technology, the better we can defend against it, and the better we can design our own weapons to defeat it. The tactical officer looked up from his station. Sir, I'm detecting some anomalies in the asteroid belt. The readings are very faint, but there might be something there. Show me. The main screen shifted to display the asteroid field on the far side of the system. At first, Vextar saw nothing unusual. Then, slowly, shapes began to emerge from the background. They were barely visible, hidden among the rocks and ice. How many? He whispered. I'm counting at least 12 contacts, sir. Possibly more. Chen nodded approvingly. 16, actually. The other 4 are using deeper concealment. They won't Show up on your sensors unless they want to. 16 ships? Admiral Kethvar's voice was tight with tension. How long have they been there? Since before you entered the system, Chen replied. We've been tracking your fleet since you crossed into Terran space. Did you really think we would let unknown aliens approach our home system without preparation? Vextar stared at the tactical display. 16 hidden ships, all in positions that would give them clear shots at his fleet. His 5 vessels were surrounded, and he hadn't even known it. This is impossible, he said. Our intelligence reports indicated this was a primitive species. Your intelligence was based on the information we allowed you to gather, Chen explained, patiently. Radio signals, primitive spacecraft designs, basic technology demonstrations. We wanted you to underestimate us. Why? Because underestimation is a tactical advantage. If your enemies think you're weak, they make mistakes. They take risks they wouldn't normally take. They reveal their capabilities while keeping their guard down. Admiral Kethvar was studying the tactical situation with growing alarm. Captain, Chen, what do you want? What I want, Admiral, is for your fleet to withdraw from Terran space immediately. You fired on one of our ships without provocation. Under normal circumstances, that would mean war. Under normal circumstances. We're prepared to overlook this incident as a misunderstanding, provided you leave now and don't return without proper diplomatic authorization. Vextar couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're giving us terms? You're still outnumbered. Am I? Chen asked. Zilhan, run one more scan. This time, look for quantum signatures that match your own technology. The science officer's hands trembled as she worked the controls. After a few moments, she looked up with terror in her eyes. Captain, I'm detecting 3 more ships. Large ones. They're using technology similar to ours, but different. Different how? I think they're ships we've encountered before, sir. Ships from other species. But they've been modified with human technology. Chen nodded. The Terran Federation has made contact with several of your former enemies, Captain. Species that you conquered and absorbed into your empire. Some of them were quite eager to share information about Zilithian technology and tactics. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display for a long moment. 19 enemy ships surrounded his small fleet of 5 vessels. The humans had turned what should have been a simple first contact into a military nightmare. Captain Chen, the Admiral said finally, you expect us to simply retreat? The Zilithian hegemony does not flee from primitive species. Chen's expression hardened slightly. Admiral, with respect, you're not fleeing from a primitive species. You're making a tactical withdrawal from a superior force. There's a difference. Superior? Vexatar couldn't keep the anger out of his voice. Your ships are still built from basic metals and simple technology. Are they? Chen asked. Zilhan, would you share your latest analysis with the captain? The science officer looked nervously between her captain and the human on the screen. Sir, I've been studying their ship's construction during our conversation. The more I analyze it, the more sophisticated it becomes. Explain, Admiral Kethvar ordered. The hull appears simple, but it's actually a complex system of layers. Each layer is designed to defeat a different type of weapon. The outer layer dissipates energy weapons by converting the energy to heat and spreading it across the entire surface. The second layer is designed to stop kinetic projectiles using a honeycomb structure that absorbs impact. The third layer appears to be some kind of reactive armor. Reactive armor? It explodes outward when hit, deflecting the force of the impact away from the ship. But, sir, there are at least 6 more layers underneath that I can't fully analyze. Chen nodded approvingly. Very good analysis. Most species focus on making their weapons more powerful. We focused on making our defenses more complete. But why? Admiral Kethvar asked. Why not simply build more powerful weapons? Because, Admiral, defense is more efficient than offense. A weapon only works if it hits its target and penetrates. its defenses. But good armor works against every weapon that hits it. We learned long ago that it's better to survive your enemy's attack and then destroy them at your leisure. Vextar was beginning to understand the human approach, and it disturbed him. You're saying you deliberately chose defensive technology over offensive weapons? Not exactly, Chen replied. We chose balanced technology. Our weapons are quite effective, but we prioritize keeping our ships and crews alive. Dead warriors can't win battles. Show us, Admiral Kethvar demanded suddenly. If your weapons are so effective, demonstrate them. Chen looked surprised. Admiral, I don't think that's wise. I want to see what we're dealing with. Fire on one of our escort ships. Minimum power. Sir, Vexatar protested. The crew! The crew will evacuate to the other ships, the Admiral said grimly. Captain Chen, will you comply? Chen studied him for a moment. Very well. But I want your word that this is a demonstration only. No retaliation. Agreed. The bridge crew watched as the escort ship, Swift Strike, moved away from the main fleet. Its crew transferred to other vessels, leaving the ship operating on automatic systems. Target selected, Chen announced, firing one projectile from our main gun. Nothing visible happened. No energy beam, no missile trail, nothing that the Zilithian sensors could detect. Then, suddenly, the Swift Strike simply exploded. The ship didn't gradually take damage or slowly break apart. It vanished in a burst of fire and debris that expanded rapidly into space. Where a functioning warship had been moments before, only scattered metal fragments remained. The bridge of the Dominion's edge was silent for several seconds. What did you fire? Admiral Kethvar asked quietly. A simple kinetic projectile, Chen replied. A piece of dense metal accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. Your shields are designed to deflect energy weapons and exotic matter. They don't stop ordinary objects moving very fast. How fast? Zilhan whispered. Fast enough, Chen said simply. Vextar stared at the debris field that had been a ship moments before. Your weapons are kinetic projectiles? Just pieces of metal? Enhanced pieces of metal, Chen corrected. The projectiles are made from dense materials and shaped for maximum penetration. But yes, fundamentally, they're just very fast rocks. That's impossible. No kinetic weapon can achieve that level of destruction. Chen's image smiled slightly. Captain, your people have spent thousands of years developing exotic matter manipulation and quantum field technology. Very impressive. But we spent those same thousands of years perfecting the art of throwing rocks very, very hard. Admiral Kethvar was studying the tactical display with new understanding. Your entire military doctrine is based on kinetic weapons? Not entirely, but primarily. Kinetic weapons are reliable, simple to maintain, and difficult to defend against. Energy weapons can be deflected by shields or absorbed by armor. Kinetic weapons just punch through everything in their path. But the power requirements, Vextar started, are manageable if you design your entire ship around the weapon system, Chen finished. Our ships are essentially large kinetic cannons with life support and defensive systems attached. Zilhan looked up from her sensors. Captain, I'm detecting energy buildups from the hidden ships in the asteroid field. They're targeting our vessels, the tactical officer confirmed. Multiple targeting beams focused on each of our ships. Chen's expression became serious. Admiral, my patience is running out. I've demonstrated our capabilities. I've offered you safe passage out of our territory. I strongly recommend you accept. And if we refuse, then this stops being a diplomatic encounter and becomes a military engagement. Admiral, you have approximately 30 seconds to make your decision. Admiral Kethvar looked around the bridge. His officers were staring at him with expressions of fear and uncertainty. The tactical display showed their 5 ships surrounded by an enemy force that had just demonstrated the ability to instantly destroy a Zilithian warship. Sir, Vextar said quietly, perhaps we should reconsider our options. Retreat? The Admiral asked bitterly. Return to the hegemony and report that we were driven off by primitives with rocks? With respect, sir, Zilhan spoke up. They're not primitives. Their technology is just as advanced as ours. It's simply based on different principles. Chen was watching them patiently, but Vextar could see tension in her shoulders. She was prepared for battle, and from what they had seen, her people were very good at it. 15 seconds, Chen announced. Admiral, Vextar said urgently, we need to withdraw. This was supposed to be a routine contact with a primitive species. Instead, we've discovered a major military threat. The hegemony needs to know about this. Admiral Kethavar nodded slowly. You're right, Captain. This information is too important to lose. He turned to face Chen. Captain Chen, we will withdraw from your territory. Excellent decision, Admiral. Please set course for the edge of the system. My ships will escort you to ensure there are no misunderstandings. Escort? Vextar asked. Standard procedure, Chen replied. We'll make sure you leave safely and don't take any detours to scan our defensive installations. As the Zilithian fleet began to move toward the edge of the system, Vextar noticed something on his sensors. Admiral, the human ships are moving. The hidden vessels in the asteroid field were emerging from their concealment. For the first time, Vextar could see them clearly. They were larger than he had expected, built along the same blocky, functional lines as the Perseverance. But these ships bristled with weapon emplacements. How many guns do they have? He muttered. I count over 200 weapon systems on each ship, the tactical officer reported. Multiple types, kinetic cannons, missile launchers, energy weapons, and several systems I can't identify. Chen noticed their attention. You seem surprised by our weapon loadout. Most ships carry one or two primary weapon systems, Admiral Kethavar said. Most ships are designed by people who think they know what kind of fight they're going to be in, Chen replied. We design our ships for the fights we can't predict. Multiple weapon systems, multiple defensive layers, multiple backup systems. If one approach doesn't work, we try another. That seems excessive. Admiral, my people have a saying. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. We apply that philosophy to everything we build. As they traveled toward the edge of the system, Vextar continued to study the human ships. The more he learned about their design philosophy, the more it disturbed him. The Zilithians had always believed that technological advancement meant specialization and efficiency. These humans had taken the opposite approach, building ships that were adaptable and redundant. Captain Chen, he said finally, may I ask you a question? Of course. Why do you build your ships this way? Why not focus on perfecting one or two systems instead of trying to do everything? Chen was quiet for a moment. Captain, what kind of world do you come from? Zilithia Prime is a beautiful world. Stable climate, peaceful environment, abundant resources. Most of our colonies are like that too, Chen said. But Earth, our home world, is different. It's a dangerous place. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, ice ages, asteroid impacts. On Earth, the environment itself tries to kill you on a regular basis. How does that affect your ship design? When you grow up on a world where anything can happen at any time, you learn to prepare for everything. Our ancestors survived because they were adaptable, because they had backup plans, because they never put. 3 weeks after their retreat from the Sol system, Captain Vextar stood in the war room of the Zilithian High Command. The massive chamber was filled with the Empire's highest military officials, all gathered to hear the report of humanity's capabilities. Fleet Admiral Kethavar finished his presentation and stepped back from the holographic display. The room buzzed with concerned voices as the assembled officers discussed what they had learned. Primitive kinetic weapons destroyed the Swift Strike in seconds, Admiral Kethavar repeated. Their defensive systems made our plasma cannons completely useless, and they had our entire fleet surrounded without us detecting them. Supreme Commander Velthara, the highest military authority in the Zilithian hegemony, studied the tactical data with growing concern. Her ancient face showed the wisdom of someone who had conquered dozens of star systems. "How many ships do they have?" she asked. "Unknown," Vextar replied. "We detected 19 in the Sol system, but Captain Chen implied there were more throughout. Their territory. Territory. How much space do they control? Based on our intelligence gathering, at least 12 star systems. Possibly more." Supreme Commander Velthara frowned. 12 systems would make them a significant regional power. Why didn't we detect them sooner? "Because they deliberately hid from us," Admiral Kethvar explained. "They've been broadcasting primitive radio signals and showing us simple spacecraft designs while secretly developing advanced military technology." "Advanced?" Another officer spoke up. "You said they use kinetic weapons and basic metals." "Basic materials, advanced engineering," Vextar corrected. "Their whole design is more sophisticated than anything we've seen. Multiple defensive layers, each designed to defeat different weapon types. But surely our fleet can overwhelm them through sheer numbers." Supreme Commander Velthara was quiet for a long moment. "How many ships would you estimate we need to defeat their 19 vessels?" Vextar exchanged glances with Admiral Kethvar. "Ma'am, based on what we observed, I would recommend at least 100 ships, possibly more." The room erupted in shocked voices. No primitive species had ever required such massive force to defeat. "Silence!" Velthara commanded. "Explain your reasoning, Captain." "Supreme Commander, their defensive capabilities are extraordinary. Our weapons were completely ineffective against their hull design. Meanwhile, their kinetic weapons can destroy our ships instantly. In a direct engagement, we would suffer massive casualties. What about our exotic matter weapons? Quantum disruptors? Surely those would be more effective than plasma cannons." "Unknown, ma'am. We didn't test those systems, but given their defensive philosophy, I suspect they have countermeasures prepared." Another officer stood up. "Supreme Commander, perhaps. We're overreacting. These humans may have good defenses, but they're still limited to basic technology. Our manufacturing capacity far exceeds theirs." Vextar shook his head. "Sir, I don't think that's accurate. While we were in their system, I noticed something disturbing about their ship construction." "Which was?" "Everything was designed for mass production. Simple, standardized components that could be manufactured quickly and cheaply. Their ships aren't elegant like ours, but they could probably build 10 of them in the time it takes us to build one." Supreme Commander Velthara absorbed this information. "You're suggesting they have superior industrial capacity?" "I'm suggesting they have a completely different approach to warfare. We build sophisticated ships with complex systems. They build simple, effective ships in large numbers." The discussion continued for hours. Intelligence reports were reviewed, tactical scenarios were analyzed, and strategic options were debated. But every conversation reached the same conclusion. Humanity represented a threat unlike anything the hegemony had encountered. "There is another option," said Admiral Drenkai, a specialist in unconventional warfare. "We could attempt to turn their allies against them." "Explain." "Captain Chen mentioned that some of our former subjects have joined with them, species we conquered and absorbed into the Empire. If we could convince those species to return to the hegemony—" "How?" Vextar asked. "They chose to ally with the humans instead of remaining under our rule. That suggests they prefer human leadership, or they fear human retaliation more than they fear us," Admiral Drenkai replied. "Fear can be a powerful motivator." Supreme Commander Velthara considered this. "What do we know about human treatment of their allies?" "Very little," Admiral Kethvar admitted. "But Captain Chen referred to them as liberated peoples rather than conquered subjects. This suggests a different relationship than we maintain with our subject species." "Different how?" "Unknown. We would need more intelligence to understand their political structure." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from the border sectors. A junior officer appeared on the main screen, his face pale with fear. Supreme Commander, we're receiving reports from multiple border outposts. Unknown ships have been detected conducting reconnaissance of our territory. Human ships? Uncertain. Ma'am, the vessels match the design parameters reported from the Sol system encounter. Basic metal construction, simple energy signatures, but they're avoiding direct contact. Velthara stood up quickly. How many ships? Which sectors? At least 30 vessels spread across 8 different star systems. They appear to be conducting systematic scans of our defensive installations. The war room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. The humans weren't waiting for the hegemony to make the next move. They were actively gathering intelligence for a possible conflict. Are they violating our territorial boundaries? Velthara asked. No, ma'am. They're staying in neutral space, but their sensors are clearly focused on our installations. How are they avoiding our patrols? The same way they hid in their own system, Vextar said grimly. Their ships don't show up on our sensors unless we specifically look for primitive technology signatures. Admiral Kethvar was studying the tactical display. Supreme Commander, this is a coordinated intelligence operation. 30 ships across 8 systems suggests they have a much larger fleet than we initially estimated. How much larger? If they can spare 30 ships for reconnaissance while maintaining defensive forces at home, I would estimate at least 200 ships total, possibly more. The number stunned the assembled officers. The Zilithian hegemony's entire military fleet consisted of approximately 800 ships spread across their territory. If the humans had 200 vessels concentrated in a small area, they represented a significant threat. Recommendations? Supreme Commander Velthara asked. We need more information, Admiral Kethvar said. Deploy intelligence-gathering missions to learn about their technology, their political structure, and their true military capabilities. And if they detect our reconnaissance efforts, then we'll learn something about their response protocols. Vextar had been studying the star charts during the discussion. Supreme Commander, there's something else we should consider. Speak. The location of their territory. They control the systems between us and the Rigel sector. If we wanted to expand in that direction, we would have to go through human space, Velthara finished, or negotiate passage rights. The hegemony has never negotiated with primitive species, Admiral Drenkai pointed out. They're not primitive, Vextar said firmly. That was our mistake. We assumed that simple technology meant inferior capability, but their simple technology is actually more effective than our complex systems. How is that possible? Because it works, Vextar replied. Our weapons are sophisticated, but they can be countered by equally sophisticated defenses. Their weapons are simple, but they're nearly impossible to defend against effectively. Supreme Commander Velthara was quiet for several minutes, studying the tactical data and intelligence reports. Finally, she spoke. I'm ordering a full military assessment of human capabilities. Deploy reconnaissance fleets to gather detailed intelligence on their technology, fleet strength, and defensive installations, but avoid direct confrontation. And if they respond aggressively to our intelligence gathering, Admiral Kethvar asked, then we'll know something important about their intentions. But for now, we treat them as a peer military power rather than a primitive species. The meeting began to break up as officers received their assignments. But Vextar remained behind to speak privately with Supreme Commander Velthara. Ma'am, there's one more thing, he said when they were alone. Yes? During our encounter, Captain Chen mentioned that they've been monitoring our expansion for 50 years. That means they've been planning for this confrontation for decades. Your point? Everything that happened in the Sol system was carefully orchestrated. They knew exactly how we would respond to a primitive species, and they used our assumptions against us. The question is, what else have they planned? Supreme Commander Velthara stared at the star chart showing human territory. You think this is all part of a larger strategy? I think we're dealing with a species that's very good at long-term planning. And if they've been preparing for us for 50 years... Vextar paused. We may already be at a severe disadvantage. Thaba, Supreme Commander nodded slowly. Then we'd better learn everything we can about them quickly. As Vextar left the war room, he couldn't shake the feeling that 2 months after the first encounter, Captain Vextar commanded a specialized reconnaissance fleet tasked with gathering intelligence on human capabilities. His orders were clear: observe, analyze, and avoid direct confrontation. The hegemony needed to understand their new enemy before deciding how to proceed. "Captain, we're approaching the outer edge of human territory," reported Commander Zilhan. She had requested assignment to this mission after studying the initial contact data. No ships detected on sensors. Use the new scanning protocols, Vextar ordered. Look for primitive technology signatures. The bridge crew worked with equipment specifically modified to detect the type of ships humans used. After their previous encounter, Zilithian scientists had realized their sensors were designed to ignore exactly the kind of technology humans employed. "Contact," announced the tactical officer. "Human vessel detected at the edge of the system. Same basic design as before. Just one ship?" "That's all I'm detecting, sir." Vextar studied the tactical display. A single human ship patrolling the border seemed like an opportunity to gather more detailed intelligence. "Begin long-range scanning. I want to know everything about that vessel." The reconnaissance fleet maintained its distance while sophisticated. Sensors probed the human ship, but after several minutes, something unexpected happened. "Sir," Zilhan said nervously, "they're scanning us back. Impossible. We're using stealth systems. Their scans are penetrating our concealment. They know exactly where we are." Before Vextar could respond, his communications officer announced an incoming transmission. "Captain, the human ship is calling us." "Put it through." The main screen showed the bridge of the human vessel. A different captain this time, an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. "This is Captain James Rodriguez of the UES Vigilance. You are conducting unauthorized reconnaissance in Terran space." "We are in neutral territory," Vextar replied carefully. "Captain, your ships crossed into our territorial boundary 14 minutes ago. Did your sensors not detect the marker beacons?" Vextar looked at his science officer, who quickly checked her readings. "Sir, I'm detecting several small objects broadcasting low-power signals. They're using basic radio frequencies." "Marker. Beacons using primitive technology," Captain Rodriguez explained. "We've learned that more advanced civilizations often ignore simple warning systems. So we use technology that everyone can detect, regardless of their scanning capabilities. We received no warning, because your computers are programmed to filter out primitive signals as background noise," Rodriguez said with a slight smile. "Another advantage of simple technology. It's harder to ignore." Vextar realized they had walked into another carefully prepared demonstration. "What do you want?" "I want you to withdraw from Terran space immediately. You've already gathered the intelligence you came for." "What intelligence?" "You've confirmed that we maintain active patrols along our borders. You've tested whether we can detect your stealth systems. And you've learned that we're monitoring your reconnaissance efforts." Rodriguez paused. "Was there anything else you needed to know?" The directness of the human captain was unsettling. Most species tried to hide their capabilities during intelligence-gathering operations. The humans seemed to be deliberately revealing information. "Captain Rodriguez," Vextar said, "may I ask why you're being so cooperative?" "Because transparency prevents misunderstandings, Captain. We know you're trying to assess our military capabilities. We'd rather show you the truth than let you base your decisions on incomplete information." "And what is the truth?" Rodriguez gestured to someone off-screen, and the image changed to show a tactical display of the local area. Vextar stared in shock as dozens of human ships became visible on the screen. "The truth is that you've been surrounded since you entered our territory," Rodriguez explained. "We've been tracking your fleet for the past 6 hours." Zilhan quickly ran new scans using the modified protocols. "Captain, I'm detecting 43 human vessels. They're positioned throughout the system. 43 ships to intercept our reconnaissance fleet of 12 vessels?" Vexatar asked. "Standard procedure," Rodriguez replied. "We don't take chances with unknown contacts in our territory." "This seems like an excessive response." "Does it?" "Captain, your people fired on one of our ships during first contact. From our perspective, any Zilithian vessels in our territory represent a potential threat." Vextar studied the tactical display. The human ships were positioned to prevent any escape route. His fleet was completely trapped, but the humans weren't taking aggressive action. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you withdraw from our territory and report back to your superiors. But first, I have a message for the Zilithian High Command." "I'm listening." Rodriguez looked directly into the camera. "The Terran Federation is prepared to establish diplomatic relations with the Zilithian hegemony. We're willing to discuss trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and mutual defense treaties. But we will not tolerate military incursions into our space. And if the hegemony chooses military action instead of diplomacy, then we will defend ourselves." Rodriguez's expression became serious. "Captain, I want you to understand something. The ships you've encountered so far represent less than 5% of the Terran Federation Navy." 5%? "We maintain defensive fleets in all 12 of our star systems, plus mobile task forces for offensive operations. What you've seen is just our border patrol." Vextar felt his blood run cold. If the humans were telling the truth, their military was far larger than anyone in the hegemony had estimated. "How many ships do you have?" he asked quietly. "Enough," Rodriguez replied simply. The transmission ended as the human fleet began moving into escort positions around Vexatar's reconnaissance force. Once again, the Zilithians found themselves being escorted out of human territory by overwhelming numbers of enemy ships. During the journey to the border, Vextar had time to study the human vessels more carefully. What he saw disturbed him even more than their numbers. Zilhan analyzed the construction of those escort ships. "Already working on it, sir. Captain, these aren't the same class of vessel we encountered before." "Different how?" "They're larger, more heavily armed, and they're showing design improvements. Over the ships from the Sol system, it's like they've been refining their technology based on what they learned from our encounter." "How much time has passed since first contact?" 2 months, sir." "They've improved their ship designs in 2 months?" "It appears so. The hull configuration is more efficient, the weapon placement is optimized, and I'm detecting new defensive systems that weren't present on the earlier vessels." Vextar realized what this meant. While the hegemony was still trying to understand human capabilities, the humans were actively improving their technology. They weren't just preparing for war, they were getting better at it. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "Incoming transmission from Supreme Commander Velthara." The main screen showed the Supreme Commander's concerned face. "Captain Vextar, report your status." "We're being escorted out of human territory, ma'am. Mission partially successful." "Explain." "We've confirmed that human military capabilities exceed our initial estimates. They detected our stealth systems, surrounded our fleet, and demonstrated superior numbers, but they allowed us to withdraw without engagement." "How many ships did they deploy?" 43 vessels to intercept our 12-ship reconnaissance force." Supreme Commander Velthara was quiet for a moment. "That seems like a significant overreaction." "Ma'am, I don't think it was an overreaction. I think it was a message." "What kind of message?" "That they have the ships to spare. Deploying 43 vessels against a reconnaissance mission suggests they have hundreds more available for actual combat operations." The Supreme Commander studied the tactical data that Vextar was transmitting. "These ship designs are different from your initial contact." "Yes, ma'am. They've been improving their technology since our first encounter. In 2 months, they've made significant upgrades to their vessels." 2 months? Our ship development programs take years. Theirs apparently don't. Ma'am, I'm beginning to think we've seriously underestimated human industrial and technological capabilities. Explain. They're not just building simple ships quickly. They're continuously improving the designs and implementing the improvements across their fleet. That suggests a level of industrial coordination and technological development that rivals our own. Supreme Commander Velthara absorbed this information. Captain, in your professional opinion, what would be the outcome of a direct military confrontation with the Terran Federation? Vextar looked around his bridge at the officers who had witnessed the human demonstrations of capability. Ma'am, based on what we've observed, I believe a military confrontation would result in massive casualties for the hegemony. Possibly defeat. Even with our technological advantages? Ma'am, I'm no longer certain we have technological advantages. We have different technology, but theirs appears to be more effective for military applications. The communication ended as Vextar's fleet reached the edge of human territory. Captain Rodriguez appeared on screen one final time. Captain Vextar, please deliver this message to your high command. They
bombed Earth's colonies. Now humanity's giants are awake. Part 1. The morning sky above Nova Prime was clear and blue when the ships appeared. Frank Miller looked up from his work on the colony's power grid and froze. Black shapes hung in the sky where nothing had been moments before. "Hey, did anyone schedule supply drops today?" Frank called to his team. No one answered. They all stared upward at the 7 massive vessels that now blocked the sun. Frank felt a chill run down his spine. Those weren't human ships. The colony's alert system remained silent, which made no sense. Any unscheduled arrival should have triggered warnings across the settlement. "Everyone inside," Frank said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Now." The first blast hit before they could move. A beam of intense purple light struck the colony's communications tower, vaporizing it instantly. The sound reached them seconds later, a thunderous crack that shook the ground beneath their feet. People ran in all directions as more beams sliced through buildings and streets. Frank sprinted toward the emergency bunker, dodging falling debris. The colony, home to 15,000 people, was being torn apart in minutes. Inside the backup communications room, Frank found the system still working. His hands flew over the controls as he prepared an emergency transmission to Earth. Outside, screams mixed with the sounds of destruction. "This is Nova Prime Colony calling Earth Command. We are under attack by unknown forces. 7 ships, technology, unlike anything we've seen. They arrived without warning and began." Another blast rocked the building. Dust fell from the ceiling as warning lights flashed red. Frank knew he had seconds at most. "Send help. They're destroying everything." "I don't think anyone will." The message cut off as the room collapsed around him. Admiral Lisa Bennett was reviewing fleet deployment plans when the first distress calls arrived, not just from Nova Prime, but from every outer colony in sequence. By the time she reached the Emergency Operations Center beneath Washington, reports showed 15 colonies under simultaneous attack. "Status report," she demanded, entering the bustling command center where dozens of officers monitored screens showing the unfolding disaster. General Paul Harris turned to her, his face grim. "It's bad, Lisa. We've lost contact with most colonies already. The few images we've received show ships unlike anything in our records." On the main screen, grainy footage from Titan Colony showed black vessels firing on settlement domes. The feed ended abruptly and static. "Current casualties?" Lisa asked, dreading the answer. "Early estimates suggest at least 2 million dead, and rising." Paul's voice was flat, but Lisa knew him well enough to hear the horror behind his words. "Our response options? The Jupiter fleet is engaging enemies near Europa. The Mars defense. Forces mobilizing. But our ships are reporting minimal impact from conventional weapons. These aliens have shield technology that makes our best weapons nearly useless." Lisa watched the tactical display as human ships blinked out of existence one after another. This wasn't just an attack. It was extinction level. "Call the Defense Council," she said, "and get me access to Facility 0. Paul's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." I've never been more serious in my life, Lisa replied. It's time to wake the giants. 3 hours later, Lisa stood before the Solar Alliance Defense Council. The 12 men and women who controlled Earth's military looked shell-shocked as they viewed footage of the attacks. The outer colonies are lost, Lisa reported. The enemy fleet has established orbital control and is beginning ground operations. Based on patterns of movement, we estimate Earth itself will be targeted within 2 weeks. What do they want? Asked Counselor Ryan Baker. Have they made any demands? None. They haven't responded to any communication attempts. And our military options? Asked Counselor Diane Powell. Lisa took a deep breath. Conventional forces are proving ineffective. The Jupiter fleet lost 60% of its ships before forcing a temporary retreat. Whatever these aliens are, they have technology at least a century beyond ours. Silence filled the room as the implications sank in. There is one option, Lisa continued, activating a secure file on the main display. Project Titan. Images appeared showing massive human-like figures in medical pods. Standing over 8 feet tall with enhanced musculature, they barely resembled standard humans. The Giants program, Counselor Powell whispered. I thought it was shut down decades ago. Development was discontinued, but the 12 successful subjects were kept in cryostasis, Lisa explained. They were designed as the ultimate soldiers, stronger, faster, and smarter than any human. Their tactical processing capabilities alone make them invaluable, not to mention their physical advantages. Those advantages are precisely why the program was terminated, Counselor Baker argued. They were too powerful, too unpredictable. Some questioned whether they were even human anymore. They are very much human, Lisa countered. Enhanced, yes, but created to protect humanity. And right now, humanity needs protection more than ever. The council debated for another hour as reports of colony massacres continued to arrive. Finally, they voted. Project Titan is authorized, the council president announced. God help us all. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Eric Hammond received the authorization codes with mixed emotions. For 20 years, he had maintained the facility and its sleeping inhabitants, never expecting they would actually be needed. He stood now before the primary stasis chamber, looking at the massive figure suspended inside. Commander Samuel Wright had been the first successful giant, the template for those who followed. His detailed file listed strength 5 times human baseline, cellular regeneration that bordered on miraculous, and intelligence that scored off conventional charts. What the file didn't convey was Samuel's humanity, his sense of duty, his compassion, and his internal struggles with his own nature. Eric had studied all the records, the interviews before stasis, the psychological evaluations. These weren't mindless weapons. They were people, extraordinary people created for a purpose they never asked for. Eric initiated the revival sequence for Samuel's pod. Medical systems hummed to life as the cryogenic solution drained away. Samuel's massive chest began to rise and fall with shallow breaths. I'm sorry to wake you to this, Eric said quietly, though Samuel couldn't hear him yet. But we need you, now. All of us do. On monitors above, footage showed alien ships advancing through the solar system. Earth's outer defenses were falling. Time was running out. Samuel's eyes opened, alert, aware, and instantly processing his surroundings. He was awake for the first time in 50 years. Humanity's giants had returned. They bombed Earth's colonies. Now humanity's giants are awake. Part 2. Samuel Wright sat on the edge of a reinforced bed that was finally built to his size. His large hands gripped the metal frame, bending it slightly as he adjusted to being awake. Every muscle in his 8-foot-tall body ached. 50 years of sleep had left him feeling like he was made of stone rather than flesh. How are the others? He asked Dr. Hammond, his voice deep and rough from disuse. All 12 giants are awake now, Eric replied, checking Samuel's vital signs on a tablet. Kate Foster and Alan Peterson recovered fastest. Maria Rodriguez is still having some trouble with her enhanced senses adjusting to the new environment. Samuel nodded. That made sense. Maria's eyes and ears were modified to detect things no normal human could. The modern world, with its new frequencies and materials, would be overwhelming at first. And the situation outside? How bad is it really? Samuel asked. Eric's face darkened. Worse than what they've told you. We've lost contact with 19 colonies. Over 3 million dead. The enemy, we're calling them the Vorn Collective based on fragments of intercepted communications. They're moving methodically through the solar system. Samuel stood carefully, his massive frame making the medical bay seem small. I need to see the others. Eric led him through wide corridors designed decades ago specifically for the giants. In the main hall, Samuel found his team, the only family he had ever known. Kate Foster was the first to approach him. Nearly as tall as Samuel, she moved with a fighter's grace despite her size. Her tactical mind had always been the sharpest among them. Commander? She said with a nod, her expression serious but her eyes showing relief at seeing him. Alan Peterson sat nearby, his hands busy taking apart and reassembling a modern rifle with remarkable speed as he learned its mechanics. Maria Rodriguez stood against a wall, her eyes half closed as she focused on controlling her enhanced senses in the new environment. They want us to fight their war, Kate said quietly, after they put us to sleep because we were too dangerous. It's not their war, Samuel replied. It's everyone's war now, and we were made for this. Were we? Alan asked without looking up from the weapon. Were we made to be weapons pulled out when convenient, then put back in storage? Samuel had no answer for that. The truth was they had all asked themselves the same question during their original training. What were they? Soldiers? Weapons? People? The world had decided they were too dangerous to keep around, until now when danger was exactly what was needed. Admiral Bennett is coming to brief us at 1400 hours, Samuel finally said. Until then, get yourselves ready. Whatever we were made for, people are dying. Admiral Lisa Bennett entered the Giants' facility with a mix of awe and fear. She had studied Project Titan, but had never seen the Giants in person. Nothing in the files prepared her for the reality of 12 super soldiers, each over 8 feet tall, watching her with intelligent eyes as she walked into their meeting room. Thank you for coming, Admiral, Samuel said, taking charge naturally. His massive frame made the reinforced chair beneath him look like child's furniture. Thank you for being willing to hear us out, Lisa replied, trying to keep her voice steady. I know your awakening was unexpected. You mean after you decided we were too dangerous to exist in society? Kate said with an edge to her voice. That was a different time and different leadership, Lisa answered carefully. I won't pretend to defend those decisions, but right now, humanity needs you. Samuel raised a hand to quiet Kate's response. Show us what we're facing. Lisa activated the room's display system. Images of the Vorn ships and their attacks played across the screens. The Giants watched in silence as colonies burned, and human ships were torn apart by advanced weapons. Our conventional forces are overmatched, Lisa explained. We've lost every direct engagement except one small victory at Europa, which only delayed their advance. At current rates, they'll reach Earth within 10 days. What do they want? Maria asked, her enhanced eyes picking up details in the footage others would miss. We don't know, Lisa admitted. They haven't responded to any communication. They simply appeared and began attacking. Samuel studied the tactical displays. These attack patterns aren't random. They're methodical, almost surgical. They're looking for something. Our analysis teams reached the same conclusion, Lisa said with surprise. But we haven't determined what they're searching for. It doesn't matter right now, Samuel replied. What matters is stopping them. What resources do we have? The conversation turned to military assets, and for the next hour, they developed preliminary strategies. The Giants processed information with remarkable speed, spotting patterns and possibilities others had missed. We need to get to Europa, Samuel finally said. Your forces held them there briefly. There's something about that moon that matters to them, and we need to see these. Vorn up close. 3 days later, a specially modified transport ship approached Europa. Inside, Samuel and 3 other giants prepared for their first combat in 50 years. They wore custom armor created by Earth's best engineers to fit their massive frames. Approaching drop zone, the pilot announced. Enemy ships detected on the far side of Europa. Samuel checked his team one last time. Kate, Alan, and Maria were ready, their enhanced bodies and minds focused on the mission ahead. Remember, Samuel told them, this isn't just about fighting. We need information. What are they, what do they want, and how do we stop them? The ship descended toward a research outpost that had gone silent 2 days earlier. As they touched down, sensors detected movement inside the damaged facility. Life signs? Samuel asked. Unclear, the ship's systems responded. But something's moving in there. The 4 giants moved toward the airlock. Their enhanced muscles made the heavy suits feel weightless despite Europa's gravity. Stay together, Samuel ordered. We have no idea what we're walking into. The outer door opened, revealing Europa's icy surface. In the distance, the massive form of Jupiter filled the sky. It would have been beautiful if not for the destruction around them. The research outpost was half destroyed, with sections exposed to the vacuum of space. They moved through the ruins carefully, their enhanced senses alert for any threat. Inside what remained of the main laboratory, they found their answer. The Vorn were not what anyone expected. Standing 7 feet tall with gray skin that seemed to shift and change like liquid metal, the aliens were collecting samples from frozen human remains. They moved with precision that suggested intelligence beyond mere instinct. Before the giants could react, one of the Vorn looked up directly at them. Its face had no recognizable features except for 3 glowing eyes that blinked in sequence. It made a sound, a high-pitched series of clicks, and suddenly all the Vorn turned toward the giants. I think we've been noticed, Alan said, raising his weapon. The Vorn nearest to them raised its arm, which transformed into something that looked like a weapon. In that moment, Samuel realized why humanity needed the giants. These weren't just technologically advanced aliens. They were physically transforming beings with capabilities beyond normal human response. The first blast hit Samuel directly in the chest, knocking him backward. The fight for Europa had begun. They bombed Earth's colonies. Now humanity's giants are awake. Part 3. The blast that hit Samuel's chest would have killed a normal human instantly. Even with his enhanced body and specialized armor, the impact sent him flying back 10 feet into a wall. But instead of staying down, Samuel rose to his feet, his accelerated healing already repairing the damage. Spread out, he ordered, as the other giants moved into defensive positions. Kate fired her heavy rifle, the round striking a Vorn squarely in what seemed to be its head. The alien staggered but didn't fall. Its liquid metal skin rippled, absorbing or redirecting the damage. Conventional weapons aren't very effective, Alan called out, switching to an experimental pulse rifle. Trying electromagnetic disruption. His next shot emitted a blue pulse that hit a Vorn and caused its form to waver visibly. The alien made a high-pitched sound that might have been pain. That works better, Alan said. Their bodies seemed to rely on some kind of electromagnetic cohesion. Maria moved with blinding speed, flanking the group of Vorn. Her enhanced senses had already mapped the room and identified a pattern to the aliens' movements. They're protecting something in the back. Lab? She reported through their comm system. Something they're collecting. Samuel pushed forward, absorbing another blast from a Vorn weapon. His massive fists connected with the nearest alien, driving it back. Unlike regular humans, the giants could match the Vorn in physical strength. The battle moved through the ruined laboratory in a blur of motion. 4 giants against 7 Vorn, neither side willing to retreat. Regular human soldiers would have been overwhelmed in seconds, but the giants were holding their own. Alan's pulse weapon proved most effective, disrupting the Vorn's ability to maintain their cohesive form. After he disabled 2 aliens, the remaining Vorn retreated toward the back of the lab, sealing a heavy door behind them. We need to see what they're protecting, Samuel said, moving to the door and applying his enormous strength. The metal groaned but held firm. Kate joined him, and together their enhanced muscles strained against the barrier. Slowly, the door began to give way. With a final push, they tore it open. Inside, they found what the Vorn had been collecting. Dozens of containers lined the walls, each holding human tissue samples. Blood, organs, and other biological materials were carefully preserved and labeled. "They're harvesting us," Kate said, her voice filled with disgust. "Like we're just resources to be collected." Maria examined one of the containers. "These are all marked with genetic identifiers. They're selecting specific genetic traits." Single Vorn remained in the room, working at a console. When it saw the giants, it made no move to attack. Instead, it pressed a sequence of controls, and a holographic display appeared above the central table. Images of human DNA strands rotated in the air, with certain sections highlighted. The Vorn pointed at these sections and then at itself, making that same clicking sound they'd heard before. "I think it's trying to communicate," Samuel said, lowering his weapon slightly. The alien continued its display, showing human DNA and then its own molecular structure, highlighting similarities that shouldn't exist between species from different worlds. "It's saying they're connected to us somehow," Alan suggested, his scientific background helping him interpret the images. "Or they want something in our genetic code." Before they could learn more, an explosion rocked the facility. The Vorn ship outside had begun firing on the laboratory. "They're destroying the evidence," Kate said. "We need to capture this one alive. It's trying to tell us something." Samuel grabbed the Vorn, which struggled but couldn't match his strength. "We're leaving now, back to the ship." The giants retreated through the crumbling facility, Samuel carrying the alien while the others provided cover. As they reached their transport, the entire research station collapsed behind them. "Take off immediately," Samuel ordered the pilot as they secured the Vorn prisoner. The ship lifted off Europa's surface just as the Vorn vessels appeared over the horizon, their weapons charging. "They really don't want us talking to this one," Kate observed as their ship accelerated away. Back on Earth, Admiral Bennett couldn't believe the reports she was hearing. "You captured one alive?" she asked, staring at the secure video feed from the giant's transport. "It was trying to communicate," Samuel explained, "showing us something about human DNA. I believe this one might be different from the others." "Different? How?" "It was working separately, and it seemed desperate to show us something before the others destroyed the facility." Lisa considered this information carefully. "Bring it to Facility 0. Maximum security. We need to understand what it was trying to tell you." As the transport headed back to Earth, scientists on the ground made their own discovery. Dr. Olivia Clark had been examining data from previous Vorn attacks when she noticed a pattern. "Admiral, you need to see this," Olivia said, entering the command center with her research team. "The Vorn aren't attacking randomly. They're specifically targeting colonies with certain population demographics." Lisa studied the data on the screen. "What demographics?" "Genetic diversity," Olivia explained. "The colonies hit first had the highest genetic variation among their populations. They're not just attacking us, they're shopping for genetic material." This new information, combined with what the giants had discovered on Europa, painted a disturbing picture. The Vorn weren't simply invaders, they were harvesting humanity for something in their genetic code. The captured Vorn was placed in a specialized containment chamber at Facility 0. Its liquid metal body flowed against the transparent walls, searching for weaknesses, but finding none. Samuel watched from outside, studying the alien carefully. "How do we communicate with it?" Dr. Hammond approached with a team of linguists and xenobiologists. "We've been developing a translation system based on the limited sounds they make. It's primitive, but it might help." They activated the system, which converted the Vorn's clicking sounds into rough approximations of human language. At first, the translations made no sense, random words and phrases, but slowly, patterns emerged. "Danger, coming, need, humans," the translation system interpreted. "What danger?" Samuel asked. The Vorn pressed against the glass, its three eyes blinking rapidly. "Others, take, consume, different." "Why, are you different?" Samuel pressed. "I remember, before, we were like you." Once. This revelation stunned everyone in the room. The alien was claiming some ancient connection between Vorn and humans. Before they could learn more, alarms blared throughout the facility. On the main monitor, satellite imagery showed a massive Vorn fleet approaching Mars. "They're moving faster than we predicted," Admiral Bennett said as she rushed into the room. "They'll reach Mars within hours, and after that, Earth," Samuel finished. "We need to stop them at Mars. It's our last chance to keep them from reaching home." As the Giants prepared for their next mission, Samuel looked back at the contained Vorn. Its three eyes watched him with what seemed like desperation. "We need a plan," Samuel told Admiral Bennett, "and I think this one might be key to finding it." With Mars about to fall and Earth directly in the path of the invasion, humanity's giants faced their greatest challenge yet. The counter-offensive would begin, ready or not. They bombed Earth's colonies. Now humanity's giants are awake. Part 4. The plan to defend Mars came together quickly. While Earth forces prepared for a direct confrontation with the approaching Vorn fleet, Samuel proposed a more daring strategy. "We don't have the numbers or technology to beat them in open combat," he explained to Admiral Bennett and the Defense Council. "But we have something they don't expect: us." His plan was bold. While Earth forces engaged the Vorn in a conventional battle near Phobos, Mars's larger moon, a small team of giants would infiltrate the Vorn flagship. Their captive Vorn, whom they now called Messenger, had revealed critical information about the aliens' command structure. "They operate as a collective mind," Samuel explained, pointing to the tactical display. "Regional Queen's control drone, ships, but the entire invasion force follows commands from a central overseer on their flagship." Kate nodded in agreement. "Disrupt the overseer. Disrupt the entire attack." The council members looked skeptical. "And you trust this alien's information?" Counselor Powell asked. "Messenger has helped us understand their technology," Samuel replied. "Dr. Clark has already used its knowledge to develop a weapon that affects their neural network." Dr. Olivia Clark stepped forward, holding a small device. "It's a virus, essentially. It disrupts the electromagnetic fields that allow the Vorn to maintain their form and communicate. Not lethal on its own, but it will significantly impair them. The catch is," Samuel continued, "it must be delivered directly to their flagship's central processing core." "A suicide mission," Admiral Bennett said quietly. Samuel met her gaze steadily. "We were created for missions others couldn't survive." After hours of debate, the Council approved the plan. Earth would commit its remaining fleets to the defense of Mars, while Samuel's team would attempt the infiltration. The battle for Mars began at dawn Earth time. The skies above the red planet filled with flashes of weapons fire as human ships engaged the much larger Vorn fleet. From the command ship, Admiral Bennett watched the confrontation with grim determination. "Status on the Giants' infiltration team?" she asked her communications officer. "They've launched from the dark side of Deimos," came the reply. "Approaching the Vorn formation now." Samuel, Kate, Maria, and Alan piloted a small craft that had been modified with technology derived from studying the captured Vorn. Its hull now mimicked the electromagnetic signature of Vorn vessels, allowing them to approach undetected amid the chaos of battle. "We're entering their formation," Maria reported, her enhanced senses monitoring the space around them. "No sign they've detected us yet." As they navigated through the Vorn fleet, they witnessed the brutal efficiency of the alien attack. Human ships fought bravely but were being overwhelmed by superior technology. "This has to work," Kate said softly. "There won't be another chance." Their small ship approached the massive Vorn flagship, a vessel 4 times larger than Earth's biggest carrier. Using information from Messenger, they located a maintenance access point near the ship's lower hull. "Prepare for boarding," Samuel ordered, checking his weapon one last time. "Remember, our goal is the central core. We plant Dr. Clark's device and get out." The Giants donned specialized spacesuits designed for their massive frames and prepared to cross open space to the Vorn ship. Each carried weapons designed by Alan using knowledge gained from their captive. 30 seconds, Alan announced as their ship matched velocity with the flagship. Samuel looked at his team, the family he had known for over 50 years, though most of that time they had been asleep. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. For Earth, he said simply. They launched themselves from their ship, crossing the void to the Vorn vessel. Using magnetic clamps, they secured themselves to the hull, and Alan began cutting through with a specialized tool. Within minutes, they had created an opening large enough for their massive frames to enter. Inside, the Vorn ship was unlike anything they had expected. The corridor seemed alive, pulsing with the same liquid metal substance that made up the aliens' bodies. The floor, walls, and ceiling flowed together seamlessly. "It's organic," Alan whispered. "The entire ship is alive." They moved carefully through the strange environment, following messengers' directions toward the central core. Occasionally they encountered Vorn drones, which they disabled using their specialized weapons. Each confrontation was swift and silent. As they progressed deeper into the ship, Kate suddenly stumbled, clutching her side. "Are you hit?" Samuel asked, moving to support her. She shook her head. "It's not from combat. Something's wrong inside me." She pulled her hand away, revealing a strange blue fluid seeping through her suit where there should have been blood. Alan scanned her with a medical device. "It's the failsafe," he said grimly. Samuel felt a chill. The giants had been created, with biological failsafes, mechanisms designed to prevent their capture and study by enemy forces. If severely damaged or if certain physiological thresholds were crossed, their bodies would begin to break down. "How long?" Samuel asked. "Hours at most," Alan replied. "The cellular degradation is accelerating." Kate straightened, pushing away, Samuel's supporting arm. "Long enough to finish the mission, let's move." They continued through the ship, pressing deeper toward its heart. Along the way, they discovered holding areas filled with captured humans, colonists being processed for genetic harvesting. The sight strengthened their resolve. "We need to free them," Maria said. "The mission comes first," Samuel reminded her. "If we succeed, we save everyone. If we fail trying to save a few..." They eventually reached a vast chamber at the center of the ship. Suspended in the middle was a pulsing mass of the liquid metal, substance but far more complex and active than the Vorn drones they had encountered. "The Queen," Samuel said, recognizing the description Messenger had given them. Before they could approach with the device, the Queen's form shifted. 3 enormous eyes opened, focusing directly on them. A voice filled their minds, bypassing their communication systems. "The altered humans," the voice said. "We have been expecting you." Samuel stepped forward. "Then you know why we're here." "To stop us," the Queen replied. "But you cannot understand what is at stake. We do not harvest for pleasure or conquest." "Then why?" Samuel demanded. The Queen's form rippled, and suddenly the chamber filled with holographic images, showing the Vorn homeworld dying, their species degrading genetically over generations. "Survival," the Queen explained. "Your species carries what we have lost, genetic adaptability, the building blocks we need to save ourselves from extinction." "By killing millions of us?" Kate challenged. Her voice strained as she fought against her failing body. "A necessary sacrifice," the Queen responded. "One species for another." Samuel stared at the alien Queen, understanding finally dawning. "Messenger said you were once like us. You've done this before to other species." "Many times," the Queen acknowledged. "It is our way." Samuel reached for the device, but before he could activate it, the Queen struck. Tendrils of liquid metal shot out, wrapping around each of the giants. Kate, already weakened, could not break free. The others struggled against bonds that seemed to grow stronger with each movement. "Your kind are impressive," the Queen said. "Perhaps the most valuable genetic material we have found in centuries. You will be studied most carefully." As the tendrils began to drag them toward processing chambers, Samuel looked at his team. They had come so close, only to fail at the final moment. Earth would fall just as the colonies had, unless they could find another way. They bombed Earth's colonies, Now humanity's giants are awake. Part 5. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, a strange noise echoed through the chamber. The Queen's massive form suddenly rippled in what appeared to be pain. The metal tendrils, holding the giants, loosened slightly. What is happening? The Queen's voice boomed in their minds, but now it sounded confused. Through the entrance to the chamber came another Vorn. Its liquid metal body moved differently from the others, more deliberately, almost human-like in its movements. Messenger, Samuel said in surprise. The escaped Vorn had somehow followed them to the flagship. It approached rapidly, its three eyes blinking in that now familiar pattern. The Queen's form shifted toward the newcomer. Traitor, the Queen hissed mentally. Defective unit. Messenger made no response but instead touched the wall of the chamber. Instantly, the entire room shuddered. The ship's organic systems responded to Messenger's touch, creating a disruption in the Queen's control. The giants seized their opportunity. With supreme effort, they broke free from the weakened tendrils. Samuel immediately moved to Kate, who could barely stand now as the failsafe continued to break down her enhanced body. The device, she reminded him, pressing Dr. Clark's creation into his hand. Samuel nodded and turned toward the Queen, who was focused on battling Messenger's intrusion into the ship's systems. He approached the central mass of the Queen's form. Device ready. Wait, Maria called out, studying the scene before them. Look at what Messenger is doing. The rebel Vorn wasn't just fighting the Queen. It was communicating with the ship in some fundamental way. Patterns of light flowed from Messenger's touch throughout the chamber. It's changing the commands, Alan realized, his scientific mind grasping the situation. Not destroying the network, reprogramming it. Samuel hesitated, the device still in his hand. Their original plan had been simple destruction, but Messenger was attempting something more complex. On the Queen's massive form, the three eyes widened in what looked like fear. No, her voice echoed in their minds. The old ways are forbidden, the consensus decided. Messenger turned one eye toward the giants while maintaining contact with the ship. Its clicking sounds came rapidly, and though they had no translator, the meaning was clear. It needed time. Cover him, Samuel ordered. Whatever he's doing, the Queen doesn't like it. The giants formed a protective circle around Messenger as more Vorn drones entered the chamber, responding to the Queen's distress. The battle was brief but intense. Even weakened, the giants were formidable fighters. Their enhanced bodies and tactical minds made them far deadlier than ordinary humans. Kate fought despite her failing body, each movement clearly causing her pain. When she stumbled, Alan was there to support her. Almost done, she said through gritted teeth. Make it count. Suddenly the ship shuddered violently. Throughout the chamber, displays activated showing scenes from across the solar system. The Vorn fleet had stopped attacking. Vessels hung motionless in space. What's happening? Maria asked. Messenger is taking control, Samuel realized. He's overriding the Overseer's commands. The Queen's form began to collapse, her control over, the flagship weakening. This will mean extinction for us all, she warned. The old ways were abandoned because they failed. Messenger finally released its connection to the ship and turned to face the giants. Using gestures and its limited clicks, it tried to communicate. Samuel studied the displays around them, beginning to understand. It's offering an alternative, he said. Not harvesting, but cooperation. Alan nodded. Symbiosis instead of parasitism. Messenger believes there's another way for the Vorn to survive without destroying other species. The Queen's form rippled in what might have been laughter. The old ways failed us before. Our consensus chose this path. But you're just one faction, aren't you? Samuel asked, pieces falling into place. Messenger represents others who disagree. Before the Queen could respond, Kate collapsed. The failsafe had progressed too far. Her enhanced body, designed to be the ultimate weapon, was now destroying itself from within. We need to get her back to Earth, Alan said urgently. Dr. Hammond might be able to stop the process. Samuel faced a terrible choice. They could use the device as planned, potentially destroying the Vorn network entirely, or trust Messenger's alternative, a risky gamble with Earth's future. Kate looked up at Samuel through pain-clouded eyes. "What would you choose if you weren't a weapon?" she asked softly. Samuel stared at her, then at Messenger, then at the slowly dissolving form of the Queen. He had been created as a weapon. They all had been. But perhaps they could be something more. "The device," he said finally, handing it to Messenger. "Can you modify it, not to destroy but to support your new commands?" The alien's eyes blinked rapidly in what seemed like agreement. It took the device and merged it partially with its own form, modifying the technology. When it returned the device, it had changed. "I'm trusting you," Samuel told Messenger. "Don't make me regret it." He placed the modified device into the core of the ship's system. Immediately, pulses of energy spread throughout the chamber and beyond into the fleet. "Get Kate to the ship," Samuel ordered Maria and Alan. "I'll finish here." As they carried their failing comrade away, Samuel remained with Messenger, watching as the modified virus spread through the Vorn network. Unlike their original plan, this version didn't destroy the collective mind. It offered choice, the ability for individual Vorn to reject the Overseer's commands. Throughout the system, Vorn ships began to power down their weapons. The collective was fragmenting as individual members chose sides. "Will it be enough?" Samuel asked Messenger. The alien made a simple gesture that needed no translation. "Hope." 1 month later, Samuel stood before the rebuilt Defense Council on Earth. The Vorn crisis had transformed into something no one had expected, a civil conflict among the aliens themselves, with Messenger's faction seeking peace and cooperation with humans. "The fighting continues in the outer system," Samuel reported. "But Messenger's faction grows stronger each day. They offer genetic exchange that benefits both species without harvesting or destruction." "And Kate?" Admiral Bennett asked gently. Samuel's expression hardened. "She chose to stay on the Vorn flagship. The failsafe had progressed too far for Dr. Hammond to reverse it, but Messenger's people found another solution." On a display behind him appeared an image that stunned the council, Kate's consciousness, preserved within a new form. Not fully human, not fully Vorn, but something in between. The first true bridge between species. "She made her choice," Samuel said, "to become something new." As humanity began the long process of rebuilding its colonies and establishing cautious relations with Messenger's faction, the Giants found themselves in an unexpected position, not weapons of last resort, but ambassadors to a new future. Samuel looked out at the stars from the observation deck. For the first time since awakening, he wasn't planning battles or strategies. He was simply wondering what came next. A world that had once feared the Giants now needed them more than ever. And Samuel, created to be the perfect weapon, found himself becoming something his creators never intended, a builder of peace. Outside, Earth turned slowly against the backdrop of stars, its remaining colonies beginning to shine once more with human life. And beyond, in the darkness between worlds, new possibilities awaited.